The message arrived on Earth without warning, transmitted simultaneously to every communication device across the planet. It bypassed all security protocols, rendering the most sophisticated firewalls useless, as if they were relics from a forgotten age. The voice that echoed through billions of speakers was neither male nor female, but carried the weight of absolute authority that transcended human understanding. Species designation: humans. Your presence in this sector has been deemed disruptive to the greater galactic harmony. The High Council of the Stellar Concordat grants you 48 standard cycles to abandon your solar system. Resistance is inadvisable. Non-compliance will result in planetary sterilization. Admiral Kavia Roshan stood on the observation deck of the UES Prometheus, Earth's flagship vessel, watching as the massive alien fleet materialized at the edge of the solar system. 73 ships, each larger than anything humanity had ever constructed, arranged in perfect geometric formation. Their hulls seemed to absorb rather than reflect light, dark, angular leviathans against the canvas of stars. "They're not even trying to hide their capabilities," whispered Commander Elior Vega, his weathered face illuminated by the holographic display. "Those energy readings, we've never seen anything like this." Kavia's dark eyes remained fixed on the alien armada. "They want us to see. They want us to know we can't win." In the emergency session of the United Earth government, panic had given way to grim determination. Director Navina Okafor, her silver-threaded locks pulled back tightly, addressed the gathered leaders. "We have two options," she said, her voice calm despite the chaos unfolding. "Surrender our homeworld and beg for mercy, or—" She paused, the weight of her next words hanging in the air. "Execute Project Exodus. Project Exodus." For decades, it had been humanity's contingency plan, their insurance against extinction, a closely guarded secret known only to the highest echelons of government. 15 massive generation ships, hidden throughout the solar system, capable of carrying 10 million souls to distant stars. In the observation lounge of the lunar colony, Dr. Perrin Kovalev, the project's chief architect, watched Earth through the panoramic window, a blue marble suspended in blackness. "We're not ready," he said to the holographic projection of Director Okafor. "The ships need at least another year of preparation. The neural archives are incomplete. The embryonic storage facilities—" "We don't have a year, Perrin," Okafor interrupted. "We have 48 hours. Across Earth, the news spread like wildfire. Families huddled together in homes, soon to be abandoned. Religious leaders offered comfort to the masses. Military personnel said goodbye to loved ones as they prepared for what would likely be their final stand. In orbit, the first of the generation, ships, the Avalon, broke from its hidden berth within Ceres. Its massive engines glowed with cobalt fire as it accelerated toward the designated rendezvous point. One by one, the others followed. The Nova Esperanza from Jupiter's shadow, the Zheng He from beneath the Martian surface, the Yggdrasil from Neptune's orbit. Admiral Roshan received the transmission from Earth Command with stoic resolve. The Prometheus and the entire combined fleet would form a defensive perimeter. They would buy time, precious minutes and hours for the civilian evacuation to proceed. It was a suicide mission, and every officer aboard knew it. As the alien deadline approached, humanity faced the most profound choice in its history: die fighting for the cradle of their civilization, or abandon everything they had built over millennia for the slim chance of survival among distant stars. Kavia gazed once more at the blue planet below, memorizing its contours, the swirl of white clouds against azure oceans. "Open a channel to all ships," she ordered. "It's time." The first shots of the war were not fired by the alien armada, nor by Earth's defensive fleet. They came from Outpost Sentinel, a small research station orbiting Europa that had been retrofitted with experimental weaponry in the hours following the ultimatum. 3 brilliant beams of concentrated energy lanced out from the station, striking one of the smaller alien vessels. For a moment, nothing happened. Then a ripple of distortion spread across the alien ship's hull before it collapsed in on itself, imploding into a singularity that winked out of existence. "They've engaged," Commander Vega reported, his voice tense. "The Stellars are responding." The alien retaliation was swift and merciless. A wave of energy swept through space, reducing Outpost Sentinel to scattered atoms. The battle had begun. Aboard the civilian transport Halcyon Drift, Lena Montauk herded terrified refugees toward the cryo-sleep chambers. As chief medical officer, she had volunteered to remain among the last awake to ensure proper stasis procedures. "Move quickly, but don't push," she instructed, keeping her voice steady despite the distant rumbles of explosions that reverberated through the hull. Through the viewports, she could see flashes of light, Earth's orbital defense platforms engaging the approaching alien vanguard. On the planet's surface, Major Orion Caden led the 103rd Tactical Response Unit through the ruins of New Alexandria. Their mission? Secure the quantum archives, humanity's digital repository of knowledge, art, and history. "Incoming!" shouted Corporal Zephyr, moments before an energy blast vaporized the building adjacent to their position. Dust and debris rained down as the squad took cover behind the remnants of what had once been a museum. 15 minutes until extract!" Orion growled into his comms, checking the status of the data transfer to his wrist display. "Hold the line!" In high orbit, the battle unfolded with brutal efficiency. Earth's combined fleet, though technologically outmatched, fought with desperate valor. Admiral Roshan's strategy was not to win, that was impossible, but to create a corridor through which the generation ships could escape. The Prometheus shuddered as another volley of alien weapons fire struck its shields. On the bridge, officers worked with grim determination, knowing each minute they survived meant thousands more civilians loaded onto the evacuation vessels. "Shields at 30%, reported Lieutenant Wren. "We've lost the Intrepid and the Dauntless." Kavia nodded, her expression unchanged. "Maintain formation, focus fire on target clusters Alpha and Beta." She opened a private channel to Director Okafor. "How much longer?" "Avalon and Nova Esperanza are at capacity and ready to jump," came the response. "Jengha needs another 40 minutes. "You have 20, Kavia replied. "We can't hold them longer than that." In the asteroid belt, Dr. Perrin Kovalev worked feverishly alongside his team, uploading the final components of the Humanity Legacy Protocol to the neural cores of each generation ship. It was an impossible task, condensing the entirety of human achievement, knowledge, and culture into digital form. But it was all they could do to preserve what humanity had been in case they had no future. As the battle raged, the first-generation ships began to move, accelerating away from Earth, protected by the sacrificial defense fleet. The alien armada, recognizing the escape attempt, shifted formation to intercept. "They're targeting the Avalon!" Commander Vega shouted. Admiral Roshan's order was immediate. "All ships converge on intercept coordinates. We are the shield." The Prometheus and its remaining escort vessels altered course, placing themselves directly between the alien weapons and the fleeing civilian ships. One by one, Earth's defenders fell in brilliant explosions, their sacrifice buying precious seconds for humanity's exodus. The void between stars had never seemed so vast, nor so terrifying. 17 days after Earth's fall, the surviving generation ships pushed deeper into unexplored space, their massive engines burning continuous acceleration. Behind them, the solar system they once called home had become their grave. In the command center of the Yggdrasil, Captain Indra Kalem reviewed the latest damage reports. Of the 15 generation ships that had begun the exodus, only 9 remained. The others had been destroyed in the initial battle or fallen to alien pursuit vessels. In the days that followed, Status on the Jung-hee? Indra asked, her voice hoarse from too many sleepless cycles. Navigator Dax Meridian glanced up from his console, fatigue evident in his amber eyes. Still trailing, Captain. They've reported engine instability after the last attack. Maximum acceleration at 60% of optimal. Indra's hands tightened on the edge of the holographic display. The Stellar Concordate's pursuit fleet was relentless, methodically hunting down the scattered remains of humanity. The Jung-hei, with its damaged engines, would be next. Open a secure channel, she ordered. All available escorts to fall back, and reinforce the Jung-hei's position. In the medical bay of the Nova Esperanza, Dr. Adria Kurosawa fought her own battle against time. The atmospheric scrubbers were failing, and carbon dioxide levels were rising in sections 7 through 12. Nearly 2,000 cryopods were housed in those sections, their occupants blissfully unaware of their peril. We need to reroute auxiliary power from non-essential systems, she instructed her team, fingers flying across the emergency control panel. Seal off the affected sections and implement manual filtration protocols. A young technician named Evren looked up, face pale. That would mean cutting life support to the hydroponics bay. We'd lose 30% of our food production capability. Better. Hungry than suffocated, Adria replied grimly. Make it happen. Deep within the heart of the Avalon, the largest of the generation ships, Professor Lysander Veit stood before the pulsing core of the Quantum Navigator, a device born from humanity's most advanced understanding of spatial mechanics. It was theoretical, untested, and possibly their only hope of escaping their pursuers. The calculations are complete, announced his colleague, Dr. Imani Okoro, her eyes reflecting the blue glow of the quantum matrix. If we're right, the dimensional fold should create a temporary passage through subspace. But Lysander, she hesitated. The energy requirements are enormous. We'd need to shut down all non-essential systems, including 70% of life support. Lysander's weathered face remained impassive. How long? 17 minutes minimum, maybe longer. Can we survive that? Imani's gaze didn't waver. Most of us. Not all. The decision weighed heavily, but time was running out. In the void behind them, alien pursuit craft were closing the distance, their weapons charged. Captain Orion Kaiden, one of the few military commanders to survive Earth's fall, led what remained of humanity's defense fleet, a cobbled-together assortment of combat vessels and armed transports. They positioned themselves in the space between the generation ships and their hunters, preparing for one final stand. Weapons hot, Orion commanded. Target lock on approaching vessels. We hold this line until the civilians are clear. Across the fleet, humanity's survivors faced the grim reality of their situation. Resources were dwindling. Mechanical failures mounted. The psychological toll of losing Earth and living in constant flight was fracturing morale. Yet in the darkness, something remarkable was occurring. Aboard each ship, humans from different nations, cultures, and beliefs were setting aside old rivalries. Engineers from formerly hostile countries worked side by side. Children too young to understand the politics of the old world played together. In makeshift recreation areas, their laughter a defiant sound against the void. As the Quantum Navigator powered up, drawing energy from every available system, the lights throughout the fleet dimmed. In the silence that followed, survivors held their breath, waiting, hoping for salvation. We've lost them, Navigator Dax Meridian announced, his voice a mixture of disbelief and cautious hope. Sensor readings confirm, no pursuit signatures, within detection range. Captain Indra Kalem allowed herself a small, tight smile, the first in weeks. The quantum jump had worked, hurling the surviving generation ships through a fold in space-time to a region of the galaxy far beyond the reach of the Stellar Concordate. For now, at least, they had escaped, but at what cost? The Zheng-He had not made the transition. Nearly 1 million souls lost. And across the remaining ships, the emergency shutdowns had claimed hundreds more lives, systems failing during the 17 long minutes of darkness. "Begin full diagnostic sequence," Indra ordered. "I want damage reports from all departments and a complete inventory of remaining resources, and get me a navigational fix. Where exactly are we?" The answer to that question proved more complex than anyone anticipated. The stars surrounding them matched no known configurations in their astronomical databases. According to their instruments, they had traveled farther than should have been possible, perhaps as much as 30,000 light-years from Earth. Aboard the Avalon, Professor Lysander Veit studied the sensor readings with growing fascination. "These energy signatures," he murmured to Dr. Imani Okoro, "they're unlike anything we've encountered before." Imani nodded, her eyes fixed on the holographic display. "It's as if the fundamental constants of physics are slightly different here. Not enough to be immediately dangerous, but enough to affect our technology in unpredictable ways." In the weeks that followed their quantum jump, the fleet established a tenuous equilibrium. The ships formed a defensive cluster around a small, icy planetoid that their scanners indicated contained valuable mineral resources. Mining operations began immediately, extracting materials needed for critical repairs. During one such expedition, Specialist Riker Varela made a discovery that would change everything. Beneath the planetoid's frozen surface, partially embedded in ancient ice, was a structure that could not possibly be natural. A perfect dodecahedron of unknown metal, each face inscribed with patterns too regular to be anything but artificial. "It's not stellar technology," Captain Orion Caden observed as he examined the object in the Avalon's secure laboratory. "The composition doesn't match anything in our database." Dr. Adria Kurosawa passed a scanner over the artifact's surface. "It's generating a low-level energy field, but I can't identify the source. And look at this!" She pointed to where the patterns seemed to shift and change under direct observation. "It's responding to our presence somehow." The discovery sparked both hope and fear throughout the fleet. They were not alone in this distant region of space, but whether that meant new allies or new threats remained to be seen. As engineers and scientists worked to unravel the mysteries of the artifact, others focused on the immediate needs of survival. The generation ships had been designed for a century-long journey to nearby star systems, not for indefinite habitation. Resources were stretched thin, and hard decisions had to be made about rationing, reproduction rights, and long-term governance. In Nai, the communal garden of the Nova Esperanza, Lena Montauk tended to young seedlings with careful hands. The greenery helped recycle air and provided fresh produce, but it served another purpose equally vital, connecting the survivors to the Earth they had lost. "My grandparents had a farm in the Carpathian Mountains," she told Evren as they worked, side by side. "Sometimes I close my eyes here with my hands in the soil, and I can almost believe I'm back there." Evren nodded, understanding in his eyes. Everyone aboard carried similar memories, precious fragments of a world they would never see again. But it was among the children, those too young to fully comprehend what had been lost, that the first true signs of adaptation appeared. They invented games suited to the ship's artificial gravity. They created new words to describe their unique experiences. They looked at the stars not with longing for what was left behind, but with curiosity about what lay ahead. As the artifact began to yield its secrets, Professor Veit called an emergency meeting of the fleet's leadership council. His expression was grave as he activated the holographic projector. "We've managed to partially decrypt the device's data storage," he announced. "What we've found suggests it's some kind of warning beacon. And if our translations are correct," he paused, looking at each face around the table, "we may have discovered why the stellar concordat was so determined to prevent our species from spreading beyond our solar system." The chamber fell silent as Professor Lysander Veit's words hung in the air. The holographic projection above the conference table shifted, displaying complex symbols that slowly translated into human language. "The artifact isn't just a warning," Lysander continued, his voice steady despite the enormity of the revelation. "It's a record, left by a civilization that called themselves the Ataraxis. According to this data, they were systematically eradicated by the stellar concordat approximately 12,000 years ago, for the same reason the stellars tried to destroy us." Dr. Imani Okoro stepped forward, taking over the presentation. "The Ataraxis discovered something about our galaxy that the concordat has been hiding for millennia. Something so significant that they're willing to commit genocide to keep it secret." Captain Indra Kalum leaned forward, eyes narrowed. What could possibly justify that level of response? "Evolution," Imani replied simply. "Or more specifically, the suppression of it." She manipulated the holographic controls, bringing up comparative biological data. "The stellar concordat isn't a natural alliance of species. It's an engineered collective created by what the Ataraxis called the progenitors, an ancient race that apparently seeded compatible life forms throughout this spiral arm of the galaxy." Director Navina Okafor, one of the few civilian leaders to survive the Exodus, shook her head in disbelief. "You're saying the Stellars attacked us because we weren't part of their... what? Their genetic program?" "It's more complex than that," Lysander interjected. "Humans evolved independently on Earth, following our own evolutionary path. We're genetically incompatible with concordat physiology, but that alone wouldn't necessitate our destruction. What terrified them was our rate of advancement." The holographic display shifted again, showing an exponential curve of technological development. "In less than 10,000 years, we progressed from stone tools to quantum navigation. According to the Ataraxis records, that rate of innovation is unprecedented and deeply threatening to the stability of the concordat's carefully controlled galactic order." The implications were staggering. Humanity hadn't been targeted for annihilation due to aggression or resource competition, but because their very existence represented an evolutionary wildcard, an unpredictable variable in an equation the Stellars had spent eons perfecting. As the information spread throughout the fleet, reactions varied wildly. Some felt vindicated, their species destroyed not for any moral failing but for their potential. Others experienced a profound existential crisis, questioning humanity's place in a cosmos apparently engineered by forces beyond their comprehension. In the hydroponics bay of the Yggdrasil, Lena Montauk confronted Dr. Adria Kurosawa. "So what happens now? We just keep running forever? There are millions of stellar vessels out there, and only 8 of our ships left." Adria's dark eyes were thoughtful. "Maybe not. The artifact contains navigational data, coordinates to what the Ataraxis called sanctuary worlds, places beyond the concordat's influence." "Can we trust information that's 12,000 years old?" Lena challenged. "What choice do we have?" The question echoed throughout the fleet as the council debated their options. The sanctuary worlds were scattered across distant regions of the galaxy, requiring jumps through uncharted space with their still experimental quantum technology. Yet remaining in their current position meant eventual discovery by concordat patrols. It was Major Orion Caden who finally broke the deadlock. "We split the fleet," he proposed. "Different ships, different destinations. We maximize the chances that at least some of us will survive." The decision was agonizing but necessary. Families were separated as specialists were redistributed among vessels based on the needs of each mission. Final messages were recorded and exchanged, with no certainty they would ever see one another again. On the eve of their departure, Professor Veit made one final discovery: a hidden chamber within the artifact containing what appeared to be technological schematics. "It's a weapon," he told Captain Indra in the privacy of her quarters. "Or rather, the concept for one. something the Ataraxis were developing to fight back against the Concordat. Indra studied the complex diagrams with a soldier's eye. Could we build this? Not with our current resources, Lysander admitted, but with time, with a secure base of operations. He let the implication hang in the air. As the generation ships prepared for their separate journeys, a new sentiment began to spread among the survivors, not just determination to exist, but defiance. The stellar Concordat had tried to extinguish humanity, believing them a threat to galactic order. Perhaps they were right to be afraid. 117 years after Earth's fall, humanity had not merely survived, it had thrived. The scattered generation ships had each found their way to different sanctuary worlds, establishing settlements that grew into thriving colonies. Using the advanced technology salvaged from the Ataraxis artifact, they had developed methods to communicate across the vast distances separating them. A shadow network of quantum-entangled relays that allowed the dispersed remnants of humanity to reconnect and coordinate. On the verdant world they named Nova Terra. Admiral Alara Roshan, great-granddaughter of Kavia, stood on the observation platform overlooking Defiance Harbor. Below, a fleet of ships unlike any built by human hands before took shape in massive construction docks. They incorporated both human ingenuity and adapted Ataraxis technology, designed with one purpose: to ensure humanity's continued existence in a hostile galaxy. "The Harbinger is ready for its final systems check," reported Fleet Commander Torin Varela, descendant of Riker. "The quantum drive exceeds all performance expectations, and the phase shield generators are operating at 112% efficiency." Ilara nodded, pride evident in her bearing. "And the primary weapon system?" "Successfully tested on the outer moon, as you ordered. The effects were precisely as the simulations predicted. Neither needed to elaborate. They had both witnessed. The test. A barren moon transformed to molecular dust in seconds by the adapted Ataraxis technology. In the century since finding Sanctuary, humanity had maintained absolute secrecy, remaining hidden from Concordat detection. They had built, planned, and prepared, knowing that concealment could not last forever. Intelligence gathered from captured stellar scout vessels confirmed their worst fears. The Concordat continued to hunt for human survivors, unwilling to allow even the possibility of their existence. "We've received the final communication from Proxima Colony," Torin informed her. "Admiral Caden confirms their fleet is assembled and awaiting your command." Similar reports had arrived from the 6 other major human settlements scattered across the galactic rim. After generations of separation and independent development, humanity was reuniting for a single purpose, not merely to defend themselves, but to reclaim what was taken from them. In the strategic command center beneath the city, representatives from all 7 colonies gathered around a holographic projection of the Milky Way. The stellar Concordat's territory glowed purple, dominating the spiral arms, millions of worlds under their control. Director Lyra Veit, head of the Nova Terra, Science Directorate and descendant of Professor Lysander, addressed the assembly. "For over a century, we've studied the Concordat, learned their weaknesses, and prepared our response. Today, we implement Operation Phoenix." The holographic display zoomed in on a specific star system near the edge of Concordat space, a seemingly insignificant outpost guarding a strategically crucial hyperspace junction. "Our combined fleet will strike simultaneously," Admiral Alara continued, "severing their communication and transportation networks in 17 key locations. Before they can mount an organized response, we'll deploy the quantum disruptors at their primary shipyards." It was not a war they expected to win through conventional means. Humanity still numbered only in the millions, while the Concordat encompassed trillions of beings across thousands of species. But they didn't need to conquer the galaxy. They needed only to demonstrate that humanity could not be exterminated, that any attempt to do so would extract a price too devastating to contemplate. As the final preparations were made, Ilara visited the Memorial Garden, a quiet space where artifacts and mementos from Earth were preserved. She stood before a simple glass case containing an ancient flag, recovered from the ruins of the Prometheus. The colors had faded, but the symbol remained clear, the emblem of a united Earth. "We're going home," she whispered to the spirits of those who had sacrificed everything for humanity's survival. "Not today, perhaps not in my lifetime, but we will return." In orbit, the massive war fleet assembled, vessels from all 7 colonies forming the largest human armada ever created. Their hulls bore the marks of their respective worlds, but each displayed the same defiant emblem, a phoenix rising from flames, wings spread against a field of stars. Aboard the flagship Reckoning, Admiral Ilara took her position on the command deck. Around her, officers and crew worked with quiet efficiency, the culmination of generations of preparation evident in their every movement. "Fleet reports ready, Admiral," announced Commander Torin. Ilara nodded, her gaze fixed on the view screen, where the distant stars beckoned. With a single command, humanity would announce its return to the galaxy, not as refugees or victims, but as a force that refused to be forgotten. "Signal all ships," she ordered, her voice calm yet carrying the weight of history. "Operation Phoenix commences now." As one, the massive engines of the human fleet flared to life, pushing them toward the quantum threshold. In the darkness between stars, humanity accelerated toward its future, carrying with it the memory of Earth and an indomitable will to exist. Throughout the vast expanse of the stellar concordate, sensors began to register anomalies, spatial distortions, appearing simultaneously across multiple sectors. In the moments before the first strikes landed, a message propagated through concordate communication channels, transmitted in the formal language of the High Council itself. "You tried to erase us from the galaxy. You failed. With dread, witness humanity's defiant return." The age of hiding was over. The children of Earth had survived extinction, evolved, and now returned, transformed by adversity into something the Concordate had never anticipated and could never have prepared for. A species that had faced annihilation and emerged stronger, unified by a singular purpose. Not merely to survive, but to ensure that never again would any power in the galaxy threaten humanity's right to determine its own destiny among the stars. As the first wave of human ships emerged from quantum transit, directly in the heart of Concordate territory, the galaxy witnessed the truth the Stellar High Council had feared all along, that humanity's greatest strength was not its technology or its adaptability, but its absolute refusal to accept defeat. Even in the face of impossible odds, the war for humanity's future had begun. Throughout the cosmos, species yet undiscovered would one day tell the legend of Earth's children, how they rose from the ashes of their shattered homeworld, turned exile into strength, and transformed from prey into a force that even the mighty stellar concordate learned to fear. Not through conquest or cruelty, but through a defiance so profound it altered the very fabric of galactic civilization. They became known simply as the Defiant Ones, those who looked extinction in the face and said, "Not today, not ever."